Men drown easiest in shallow water. The river ran brown, slapping horse knees. On a gravel bar stood a woman in a faded blue dress, skirt heavy with water, carpetbag at her feet, hands raised to show nothing but river and sky. Along the bank, a posse bristled with borrowed rifles. Elias' heart reined on the higher bank, badge steady on his vest. A deputy's work is to keep hot hearts from making cold graves. He read the sign. The stage had been robbed at Dead Man Bend an hour back. Somebody took the bank's payroll and left the guard dazed. Yet the trail showed no wagon marks, only a slash of pony tracks and a lighter set that broke for the cottonwoods. Small feet, shoes worn smooth. That's her. Ezra Phelps barked from his bay. She flagged the coach, asked about passengers, then vanished. Now the payroll's gone and she's cut us off at the crossing. Sheriff Kincaid cupped his hands. Miss, come on in. Slow and easy. You're under arrest. The woman didn't move. Her eyes cut up river as if time were about to snap. The carpetbag gaped, linen, twine, a pewter spoon. No pistol. Name yourself. Phelps shouted. Midwife, she said, voice clear though her teeth chattered. Mary Coulter. A woman's laboring upriver. I was crossing when your men stampeded me. I've got to go. Elias felt a tremor move through the men. Mobs are roped that frays where it's weakest. He nudged his sorrel downhill. Hold, Kincaid warned, but Elias was already riding. The river grabbed for the sorrel's legs. He let the horse pick its way. He kept his eyes on the woman, not on the rifles behind him. Miss Coulter, he said when he was close enough to be heard without shouting.
I'm Hart, deputy. We'll do this clean.
Set your bag on my saddle horn and walk with me. You won't be harmed. I can't go to town, she whispered. The banker. Her gaze flicked to Phelps. A child's coming too fast. If I don't reach her, both may die. Phelps spurred to the water's edge. That's the thief talking. Sheriff, send men downstream. Elias caught Kincaid's eye. She's got twine and linen. A midwife's kit. No marks of a heavy load, no partner waiting. The pony tracks cross and vanish into rock. Kincaid hesitated. Hart, we bring her in. We're the law. The law protects the innocent before it hunts the guilty, Elias said. Let me put her on my horse, get her dry. If Casey's wife is on the edge, I'll take the blame for the hour lost. You'll take more than blame if she's lying, Phelps snapped. I'll see you stripped of that tin star. Elias let a hand rest on the carbine, not to raise it, just to remind the crowd their anger wasn't alone. Nobody's stripping anybody on a gravel bar, he said. Miss Coulter, step over. She moved slow, fighting suction. When the current shoved her, Elias swung down and caught her elbow. Her skin was ice through wet muslin. She flinched, then held still. I didn't take your money, she said low, but a man who owes me wages would like you to think I did. Names can wait. He boosted her up, settled the carpetbag, and mounted behind, making a wall of his body against the rifles. He raised his voice. Sheriff, I'll bring her to the post road. We'll sort this right. Kincaid lifted his hand and the rifles sank a finger's breadth. Go, the sheriff said. But Hart, you'll answer if she runs. Reckon I always have, Elias said. They made the far bank. The sorrel climbed the cut bank and pushed into willows. Elias felt Mary shiver. Thank you, she said. I can walk from here. We'll both walk, he answered. He tied the sorrel and shrugged off his coat, wrapping it around her. Which camp? Casey's, 2 miles upriver. She measured him. Are you a man who asks questions? Only when I know half the answers, Elias said. Then read this. I left Dr. Reeves's employ last week without pay. He sits in the banker's pocket. If someone staged a robbery today, it's so that a ledger can be cooked and a debt erased. They mean to put that on me. Elias looked back across the water. Phelps bent to Kincaid's ear. Men drifted on the bank. Miss Coulter, he said, we'll see the mother and the child through. Then we'll see the truth through. One thing at a time saves lives. That sounds like a promise. It is. They took the ridge trail, water ticking from willow leaves like a clock counting a short hour. The river ran on under a low sky, carrying rumor toward town. Behind them, the posse argued and scattered. You live longer if you stay off the skyline. Elias drove the sorrel into willow shade and let the leaves comb river breath from his hat. We ghost this bank, he said. Brush beats any jury. Only if we don't rustle it, she answered. They slid down and led the horse. Behind them, Ezra Phelps's orders slapped the air. Mary pointed at a plug of cattails where the current softened. They eased in, knee-deep, part of the river's hush. On the far side, a rider cursed when his horse found mud to the knees. Elias breathed slowly and measured sound. "They'll spread," he murmured. "Then we won't," she said. "A deer path runs this shelf. Keeps us off open ground. I've walked it with women who couldn't afford a doctor or a wait. You know this country. I learned it the hard way." They moved when the riders trotted off. Roots slicked underfoot. Twice Elias steadied her. Twice pride tipped her chin before sense took hold. He paused to listen and then slid on. Smoke thinned ahead. A gray thread. Casey's camp lay in cottonwoods, a wagon jacked to mend an axle, a kettle black as sin. From the wagon bed came a low sound, a held-back ocean. Mary didn't ask. "Heat water," she told the freckled boy at the tent flap. "Deputy, clean cloths. Casey, breathe with your wife when I count." Elias dipped and filled, built a tight, dry fire that would flame quickly and smoke little. Casey slid from beneath the wagon and saw the badge and midwife both. "Posse's out," he told Elias. "Don't bring heat on us." "We brought help," Mary said. "Your woman is ready whether you are or not." The woman in the wagon gripped the sideboard, hair pasted to her brow. Her eyes fell on Elias's star, then fixed on his face. "Ma'am," he said low. "When she says breathe, breathe. When she says push, lean on me." Mary worked like a commander. She checked the lay, boiled linen, set a rhythm a body could borrow. When pain crested, she steadied the mother with a palm at the shoulder and a quiet count that matched breath to effort. "Now," she said. And Elias braced the woman's grip as if he were bedrock. The world narrowed to wagon boards and breath, to labor older than outlawry. The cry came high and fierce. Mary's face softened. "A daughter," she said, swift with cloths, exact with care. She set the warm bundle on the mother's chest. Tears cut clean tracks through dust. Casey sagged. "Reckon that axle can wait?" "It can," Mary said. "But not for long. We can't stay. Deputy, keep the fire low." Elias handed her his tin and she drank without looking. The boy brewed coffee wrong, but generously. Elias swallowed grit and praised the cup. A pebble ticked from the ridge. Elias turned only his head. He rose slowly, drifted to the brush like a man gathering wood. He found a fresh boot scuff, a buckle scrape on juniper bark where someone had braced to watch. The angle pointed toward town, not the river. Back in camp, Mary had the mother settled and Casey set to a task that would keep him from pacing a trench. The baby rooted and found what she sought with the certainty of necessary things. "We move when they sleep," Elias said low. "Reads again. There's a place the wind hides paper and weather hides tracks." Mary's eyes sharpened. "A ledger?" "A way to catch one," he said. "Men who doctor books leave a sign as deer in snow. Reeves sits in the banker's pocket. Then that pocket has a hole and I intend to put my hand in." She nodded. "I can carry the child if I must. You'll carry your courage. I'll take what's heavy." A crow laughed. Elias banked the coals and studied the trees. Phelps wouldn't waste a chance to be right. Somewhere up there, a town man watched and reported. Paid to see, too careful to risk the river. Elias would need that man to lead him to the ledger and the hand that wrote it. For now, the work was smaller. He checked the woman's breathing. "You did fine," he said. "Sleep while the world allows." She smiled without opening her eyes. "You talk like you've done this before." "Only watched," he said. "Watching is half a life out here." He kept first watch. Mary dozed upright, one hand on the wagon bed. Elias listened to river and horse and cottonwood, let the quiet gather strength. He nodded once, and the night seemed to lean in closer. When the moon lifted pale and thin, he woke her with a touch. "Time," he said. "Then let's go where truth has to follow," she replied. "Tracks tell the truth when men lie." They broke camp, leaving coals buried under sand. Moon slid west while cottonwoods kept their counsel. Elias set Mary on the sorrel and led through reeds that swatted softly on their legs. "We go light," he said. "I have what I need," she answered. Willow closed above them until the river bent and the wind turned cool with bluff shadow. Elias lifted his palm. The sorrel stopped because it knew that hand. "Listen." A stone rolled up the bank and stopped. Mary's fingers gripped, then loosened. "Watcher?" "Town man," Elias said. "Boots that don't waste heel. Too careful to splash. He'll ferry what he sees to a pocket that pays." "Let him look," she said. "We can't draw a chase to the family behind us." "We won't. We'll give him a story." He angled upriver, then back, leaving prints where the ground would cake and hold until the sun burned them away. At a break in the willow, he scuffed his heel, deep and obvious. Sometimes you leave a poor lie so the truth can pass by, he said. That sounds like a habit. It's a trade. They entered a slough choked with cattail. Elias stepped where black mud rose slowly and fell quiet, counting a breath between each move to let the water forget them. Mary matched him without asking. Past the slough, a limestone cut opened, a crease in the bluff where wind came down steady. Old paper lay flattened to the rock, leaf mold and horsehair. A scrap of newsprint thumbed into a fissure. This place keeps a secret, he said. Freighters stash tobacco. Boys hide cards from their fathers. The wind lies like a shawl. He reached into the fissure and drew a folded sheet, grit-sanded and rain-cured, but the ink held. Columns, names, ticks, and a neat surgeon's hand. Mary knelt. Doctor's figures. Reeves writes numbers like he cuts thread, exact enough to brag on. See the short tails on the twos? Elias traced the margin. 2 ledgers. One for the bank's books, one alongside. Here he lists salt, oats, and a consultation fee paid by the bank. But another mark crosses the same number and sends it to a cipher. She tapped a row. Those initials aren't a patient. PC means pocket cash, and he stole nurses' pay and wrote it off as medicine. You were a nurse to him. Until I asked for what was due. Elias folded the sheet into his vest. We have the first nail. We need the board to drive it into. In town, he said, where pride keeps them from backing down. They moved again, keeping to the cut where the wind combed out their scent. Twice Elias set simple drafts for the watcher, prints that told of a woman and a deputy making for the uplands. Twice he saw where a careful man had stepped to see and stepped back to keep from being seen. Dawn edged the ridges. Elias put Mary in the lee of a boulder and studied the river track toward town. Smoke lay thin beyond the bend. A bell clanged, the forge waking. Market day, he said. They'll be thick in the street. You plan to walk a thief into his counting house? I plan to give pride an audience. Men who hide behind ledgers hate a crowd. And if the posse reaches us first, then we measure our words and save our strength. He gave her jerky and a swallow from his canteen. For a time, there were only 2 people hungry at a rock. You broke ranks back there, she said. That didn't start today. No, it started the first time I saw a man being slapped because a boss owned his shirt. The law can be a cudgel or a crutch. I carry it until it gets in the way of standing upright. I can work with a man who talks like that. You already are. He adjusted the cinch. We go down easy. Let them see us coming. Truth does better walking the front door than crawling under it. They took the river trail into the town's fringe, where willows gave way to corrals. The watcher's sign peeled toward a side street. Elias let him go. Let the fish think it led us to water, he murmured. On the main street, folks sweated. A pie auction table went up. Bunting drooped over a dry fountain. The bank's door was propped with a box of ledgers to air them from mold. Reeves's sign swung next to it. Elias touched Mary's elbow. We step in, we speak plain, and we keep our hands where fear can see them. And if fear still pulls a trigger, then fear will answer for that too. They walked forward into the day that would decide things ahead. Crowds hang a man before noon and forget by supper. Market day jangled. Women bargained, boys ran with sticks, and the forge beat time at the far end of the street. Elias walked beside Mary with his hands open, badge plain. The bank showed its teeth in bright glass. Harlan Fitch, proprietor, shone in gilt. Next door, Dr. Reeves's shingle creaked. Sheriff Kincaid stood near the auction table. Ezra Phelps saw them. There, he called. The midwife who robbed the stage. Heads turned. Elias planted his boots where the boardwalk met dirt. Hold, Kincaid said, palm up. We'll hear before we hang. I came to be heard, Mary said. A woman owes me pay. A doctor owes me more. A banker owes this town an answer. Harlan Fitch stepped into the doorway. Deputy Hart, you bring stray trouble to my stoop? I bring a page that belongs in your vault, Elias said. He drew the folded sheet. Dr. Reeves runs 2 books. One for your clerk and one for your pocket. Nurses' wages stripped, consultations charged. Reeves came down like a storm cloud. That is private practice, he snapped. This woman left my employ without notice. She is a thief and a liar. Mary did not flinch. A child was crowning while you tallied fees. Elias held the sheet. A ledger hides until it needs air. This one found a breeze. I say it points to a hand in the bank's till. Fitch's smile thinned. You say many things for a deputy who defied his sheriff. Kincaid's face did not move. He defied a hot minute. He stands with the law now. A horse screamed. A wagon lurched and a child fell to the dust. The wheel rolled toward him. Mary moved before breath caught. She reached the boy, scooped, rolled, and covered as the wheel thumped past. The boy cried, alive. She checked him, tied a quick sling. The crowd's lean changed. Mary faced the porch. Doctor, shall I bill you for that? Reeves's color went to chalk. Elias let the silence hold. We'll look in the bank records, he said. Open books clear names faster than bullets, Fitch shrugged. I am a transparent man. He turned and gestured. A clerk hustled up with a ledger. See for yourself, Elias read. Numbers marched like soldiers. Too clean. Where is last month's? In storage, Fitch said smoothly. We air one at a time. Fetch it, Kincaid said. The clerk hurried. Elias felt hair rise at his neck. A shadow crossed the alley between the bank and the doctor's office. Mary, he said without turning his head. Step to my right. She did. The shadow broke from the alley, hat low, coat heavy. He reached for Mary with quiet speed that said practice. Elias moved slow enough to be missed and fast enough to matter. He caught the man's wrist and turned it down against the rail. Bone met wood and reconsidered. The pistol clicked on nothing because Elias's other hand had the hammer. No need for tools at a book reading, Elias said. The man hissed and tried to twist free. Kincaid took 2 steps and laid a palm on the man's shoulder. You're done, the sheriff told him. Name? Matson, the man said. Fitch's guard, somebody whispered. Fitch raised his hands. I hire protection. This street is lively. Your protection just tried to kidnap a witness, Elias said. Kincaid, Fitch protested, control your deputy. I will, Kincaid said, by following the law he serves. He nodded at Elias. Walk the man to jail. We'll hold him, and we'll open those books. Ezra Phelps found his voice. Sheriff, we can't waste the day on ink. The payroll's gone. It doesn't travel far when its feet are in a bank, Elias said. Open the storage. The clerk returned empty and sweating. Sir, the back room, someone forced the door. Last month's ledgers are gone. A murmur swelled. Fitch's calm broke. Thieves, he said. You see? This town is overrun. Or cleaned, Elias said, looking at the alley. Paper runs before rope. Kincaid drew himself up. No more games. We seal the bank till sundown. We search Reeves's office. Phelps, post your men properly, not hunting, holding. Mary stood beside Elias, hand steady on her carpetbag. She looked toward the river as if hearing time again. This isn't finished, she said. No, Elias told her, and kept his voice low. It's begun with witnesses. Her eyes lifted to his. When this is over, you won't wear that star. Maybe I won't, he said. But I'll walk more easily. He gave Matson to the jailer and turned back to the porch where Truth had been invited and tried to flee. The crowd watched with a clean hunger. Behind glass, Harlan Fitch did his sums with a shaking hand. Paper burns faster than truth. Kincaid chained the bank and posted men. Reeves's office next door yawned with a cracked window and the smell of carbolic. Elias stepped in with Mary. We start with what won't lie, he said. She went to the file cabinet, pressed the drawer, and frowned. Lamp oil, she set her ear to wood. Warm, Elias booted the drawer wide. Fire breathed like a hidden animal and leapt for air. He flung the cot blanket, missed, then settled it tight, knuckles close to heat. Mary tipped a basin and bled the flame until the smoke folded. When the room quit snarling, she lifted the blanket. A ledger lay blistered but alive. Elias slid it out with a bandana and laid it flat. Pages upwind, he said. Mary turned the leaves. Reeves's hand ran steadily, then quicker in the last third. Here are his twos, she said. Short tales when he's sure of himself. Elias studied margin marks, little triangles beside selected sums. He set the salvaged sheet from the limestone hole next to the book. The torn stub fit the scorch like a tooth in its place. In the margin by a triangle, Reeves had written RM-17 river marker, Mary said. The Corps painted numbers on the cottonwoods by the crossing. 17 sits below the ferry, where a man could tuck a skiff and never answer a question, Elias said. He closed the ledger. Fitch airmailed a month into the river shade and tried to cook the rest. Boots hit the boardwalk. Phelps burst in with Kincaid behind him. Fire, Phelps crowed. Sheriff, look at this. Someone lit it before we came, Elias said. We put it out. Mary pointed out a line where Reeves had reassigned her wages to PC and Cipher. He robbed me on paper, same as the bank, she said. Today's robbery balances their book. Kincaid's look measured single marks and clean boot toes. We'll keep this, he said, folding the ledger and sacking. To Phelps, post 2 at the back, not your loudest boys. On the boardwalk, Mary dabbed Elias's scraped knuckles with a cool cloth. Matson, he said. The jail smelled of bars. Matson sat with his hands folded to hide ink that wouldn't hide. Elias tipped his chair. Some men are paid in coin, he said. Some in promises. Which bought you? Matson stared at the wall. Elias let the quiet lean. Your cuffs show ink and your boot seams show river mud. You moved books where fish keep secrets. Matson looked down before he could stop himself. Mary spoke from the door. I borrowed the skiff at 17 yesterday. Your rope was coiled sternside, wrong for a patient man, right for a man who comes and goes quickly. A tick jumped in Matson's cheek. Name the hand, Elias said, voice level. If you didn't draw blood, you'll walk when the truth does. Or keep your mouth and watch Fitch forget you. I don't turn on men, Matson muttered. Men like Fitch turn on you, Elias said. Kincaid ended it with a shadow in the doorway. Enough till morning. Keep 'em tight. Outside, river wind carried damp leaves and iron. A thin boy slid from the livery to the bank's side door, took a wrapped parcel from a clerk and trotted toward the ferry road. Runner, Elias said. Not the sheriff's, Phelps's? Mary asked. Or Fitch's, Elias said. Either way, the river gets company after dark. He checked the sorrel's cinch while the market day let go. We go to 17 when dark lands. Quiet feet. She tied her hair back with a strip of muslin cut from a newborn swaddling. And quick hands, he nodded. Bring only what you can drop in a heartbeat. You're thinking betrayal, she said. I'm thinking somebody in a badge wants this buried, he said. Phelps smells like a man who stood too close to money. They took the low path as lamps woke like cautious eyes. At the ferry road, Elias touched her elbow. If this turns loud, you run for the willows. If it turns loud, she said, I'll be where a steady hand keeps it from turning fatal. You bring the night to heal. I'll keep breath where it belongs. Fair split, he said. They ghosted the wagon yard. Somewhere behind them, a voice rehearsed outrage for morning. Somewhere ahead, water counted seconds against cottonwoods painted in white. The paper had tried to burn. A banker had smiled too smoothly. A doctor had written neat lies. The river would speak next if a skiff still rode in the undercut shade at 17, and a man with promises for pay came to tend it. Wind lifted the cottonwood leaves. Night shows the belly of things, Elias said. Mary matched his pace. Then let's read what the rivers kept back. Moonlight makes a badge a target. They reached river marker 17, the cottonwood's white number fading, wind gnawing at the roots. The river curled quietly as a secret. A skiff lay undercut by high water, moored to a root with a fresh half-hitch. Your runner used sailor's knots, Mary whispered. And hurried, Elias said. Loops sloppy, tails long. Under 2 planks he found a tin cash box wrapped in oilskin and tied with bank twine. Mary touched the twine. Fitch's clerk ties right over left when he's flurried. See the lane? Elias unwrapped receipts with a bank seal. Deposit slips in a tight surgeon's hand, promissory notes bearing rancher names proud as bone. Paper that wanted dark, he said, sliding the bundle inside his vest. Proof that swims when cornered. Grass rustled upslope. Elias raised a finger. Mary froze. A voice floated down, edged by whiskey and pride. Hart, step out where a decent man can shoot you proper. Ezra Phelps stood against the sky, men fanned either side. Moon drew a line on his badge. You brought the bank to the river, Elias called. Careful. The river answers straight, Phelps spat. You brought a thief to town and nearly got her killed. Hand her up in the page you're hiding. Sheriff doesn't run you now. I walked ahead, Elias said. There's a difference. A shot snapped bark from the cottonwood. Mary slid behind the skiff and met Elias's eye. You wear a lamp on your chest, she breathed, glancing at his star. He unpinned the badge and closed his fist over it. The law can sit this one out, he said, pocketing the tin. Tonight I'm a man between a woman and a lie. Then we're standing together, she said. Another shot struck the stone. Elias shoved the skiff into the current, sending it downstream as a decoy. He and Mary slid along the bank through willow that wrote whispers on their shoulders. Bring the lantern, Phelps barked. A gunman struck flame. Light swung. Elias took his moment. He slipped into water to the waist. boots quiet, and hauled the skiff back beneath a leaning root. Mary handed him the oars without asking. He sculled backward inches at a time, stealing distance. Light washed the cut bank where they had been. "Spread," Phelps ordered. "Matson to the ferry road." "So that's how the jail door swung," Elias murmured. "We can't outshoot them," Mary whispered. "Now." "No," he said. "But we can outwant them." They reached a tongue of reeds, making a narrow room. Elias set the skiff inside and pulled Willow across, temple tight with listening. A bullet whisked a stalk and died somewhere polite. "Bandana," he breathed. Mary pressed it into his palm. He wrapped an oar to dampen the creak, then used the blade to part a window between stalks. Phelps moved along the bank, lantern lifted. Matson's step showed near the ferry road. Mary's hand found Elias's sleeve. Tension ran through her like a wire. He put his palm over her knuckles and left it there. The lantern tilted. Elias snapped his wrist and slapped the oar blade against the water 20 feet left. Sound leapt. Guns barked at the lie. The lantern swung toward noise, and the bank showed its undercut. Elias pushed right, deeper in shadow. A round found him anyway. A graze across the ribs where shirts are thin. Warmth spread. Mary's breath hitched. "Hold," she said, voice all doctor now. She pressed linen hard. Tied twine checked him. He grinned because Grim cost more. "You tie better than their clerk." "And faster," she said, fingers staying to be sure. From the hill, a whistle cut the night. "We can't keep the river between us and morning," Elias said. "We move through them, not around. That's a fool's map. It's the only one that reaches town with proof." He eased the skiff free. "When I push us out, take that lantern with your left hand. It burns there, as it will burn them more," he shoved. Mary rose and flung the lantern's globe into the shallows at Phelps's feet. Oil burst and crawled, yellow roaring up with heat that made men leap back from themselves. Fire threw their faces wide so fear could find them. Elias drove the skiff past the flare, took one shot at the lantern-bearer's wrist, and heard the pistol hit mud. Matson fired wildly. Phelps cursed like a man owed money. They slid beyond light. Willow closed. "By dawn," Elias said, breath thin around pain. "We put these papers on a table nobody can kick over." "And if the table flips anyway?" Mary asked. "Then we build a new kind," he said, "and ask the town to sit." Elias bared his teeth at the sound, half laugh, half oath, and pulled for town with his badge heavy as a promise against his heart. A locked door is only as strong as the man behind it. They nosed the skiff into shallows and walked the stretch under the hush of barns. Elias felt the river on his clothes and the weight of paper against his ribs. "The forge first," he said. "An anvil is a table nobody tips," Mary nodded. The blacksmith's door gave under Elias's palm. The man was up, bellows sighing. "Heart?" he grunted, then met Mary's eyes and tipped his chin. "We need a room that doesn't lie," Elias said. "You've got it," the smith answered, throwing the bar. Elias set the oilskin on the anvil, spread receipts and notes and the salvage page with Reeves's tidy crimes. Mary laid a cloth to keep grit off the ink and weighed the corners with shoes. Kincaid slipped in through the back. "You look like men who crossed a line," he said. "We found the bank's shadow at River 17, Elias told him. "Skiff, cash box, receipts in a surgeon's hand." Phelps tried to make the river decide. He brought Matson, and Matson wasn't in his cell by accident. Kincaid's mouth made a line. "Jailer says he never saw him leave." "He saw him paid not to see," Elias said. Mary's fingers were quick, sorting, pairing signatures. Dr. Reeves moved wages to pocket cash. Fitch laundered through consultations and bank fees. "Every mark rubs a hole in the same pocket." Kincaid studied the pile. "Enough to break a man's smile," he said, "if we live to morning." Boots skidded on gravel. The smith's boy burst in, freckled and gasping. "Deputy, men at both alleys, Phelps, Matson, they told me to go home." "Behind the quench barrel," Elias said. "Keep down." A knock hammered the door. Phelps's voice spread. "Open up, Kincaid. We've got warrants and a town to calm." Kincaid looked at Elias. Duty sat on the sheriff like wet mail. Elias reached into his pocket and brought out the star. He set it on the anvil beside the papers. "The badge draws their aim," he said. "Mary needs daylight more than I need tin." Kincaid's eyes flicked to the star and away. "You won't get it back." "I'm not asking," Elias said. Mary's face went still. "You can't give up the law for me." I'm giving up a piece of metal so truth stands, he said. Phelps hit the door again. Last call, Sheriff. Kincaid took a breath that tasted of iron. You come through my door, Ezra. You come as a citizen, not a wolf, he called. Guns stay low. Not today, Phelps answered, and the latch jumped under a pry bar. Elias shoved the quench barrel. When they break it, he said to Mary, steam and smoke, low. Take the boy through the coal chute, east side. Church keeps papers safe. And you? I'll draw fire. The door splintered. Elias tipped a red bar to water. Steam lifted in a blind curtain. Men cursed. A shot chewed the jam and found Kincaid's shoulder. The sheriff dropped to one knee and didn't stop being a wall. Mary slid to him, hands sure, stanching, binding. You can breathe through a bullet, she told him, and made him do it. Elias moved with the steam, a shade among silhouettes. He clipped a wrist with the crowbar, kicked a knee, and sent a pistol clattering. Back off, he said. You're not robbing a bank through a smithy. Matson lunged through the fog. Elias felt the man's shoulder and the old jailhouse strength in it. They went to the floor, skidding in puddled history. Matson's knife kissed Elias's vest and found paper before skin. The cash box bundle slid. Mary's carpet bag caught it in a sweep that knew what mattered. Go, Elias barked. She looked once at him. That was all. She and the boy vanished into the chute like breath into winter. Phelps fired at the sound. The bullet broke the window and morning came in meaner. Elias used the light against them, keeping his eyes on him. He threw a horseshoe that rang off the doorframe like a bell. It didn't work. Kincaid, white and stubborn, dragged himself to the star on the anvil and set his hand over it. You're a fool, Hart, he said, voice ground down and even. But you're my kind of fool. Finish it. Plan to, Elias said. He shouldered through the side door with the crowbar, drawing Phelps into the alley. Men crowded the mouth, guns up. Elias ran for the livery where shadows gathered like allies, where hooves and hay could be turned to use. Behind him, the smith slammed the bar, buying minutes. In front, horses stamped, ready to be told a different story. The town hadn't decided yet. But day was coming, and Elias aimed to meet it with truth on its feet. Horses don't argue with daylight. Elias slipped into the livery like a man born under rafters. He found the lead mare, the soft hackamore, and the back gate that lifted as it shoved. He rattled grain, set a low iron hum with a drag chain, and tapped the stall doors 1, 2, 3. Trail boss rhythm for bad nights. Easy, he told the mare. We're choosing for them. Men crowded the alley mouth. Phelps's voice carried. Hart, hands high. Elias tied a rawhide to the latch so he could pull from cover, smothered the lantern to smoke, fed a mouthful, and slapped the scoop shut. At Phelps's now, he jerked the line. The gate flew. He popped the mare's hip and hissed through his teeth. She surged, and the string followed. Horsepower poured into a narrow street. The first gunman didn't clear. Hooves made quick decisions. Elias ran with the tail horse, keeping the stream from turning on itself, while bullets wasted a water trough and sprayed the alley into speed. Matson grabbed for a headstall. Elias dropped a loop, bit the man's wrist, and yanked him flat. The knife bounced away. Leave it, Elias said, and kept moving. The herd broke into the square just as dawn thought about showing. A bell answered, clear, insistent. Mary had reached the church. Doors opened. Folk stepped back on reflex, older than law. Harlan Fitch shot from his side door with a tin strongbox and a ribboned key, angling for the ferry. A bay gelding spun him. The box skidded. Papers leapt. Fitch went to one knee, more anger than pain. Elias crossed at a long, low trot, keeping horses between himself and Phelps. He trapped the strongbox with a knee. Fitch lunged. Elias showed him a flat palm. Careful. Your accounts are having a public morning. Phelps came hard, hat gone, mud on his badge. He raised his revolver with both hands. Mary set her carpet bag on the church steps. She didn't speak. She just looked at Phelps long enough to make a man hear his own name wrong. Holster, Elias said. No more drawing on crowds. Not till you're down. Phelps cocked the hammer. The bay shied half a step. That was enough. Elias closed, jammed Phelps's wrist with the strongbox corner, and turned the muzzle to earth. The shot dug dirt. He lifted and pinned Phelps to the hitch rail, shoulder hard under ribs. Hands, he said. Phelps clawed. Elias answered with a short, honest punch. The fight went out of him. Iron clicked. Cuffs Kincaid had pressed into Elias's palm at first light with a look that said the town still needed law even if a man quit wearing tin. Matson staggered from the alley, blood on his shirt, truth working in his jaw. He saw Fitch and the drifting papers and the church doors opening wider. "Tell it," Elias said, not loud. Matson swallowed. "Fitch paid me to pull books and plant 'em at the river. Reeves wrote the lies. Phelps was to lose the ledger and get the credit." Fitch found breath. "Lies," he rasped. "Vigilante nonsense." Mary lifted the oilskin from her bag and laid it on the church steps like a swaddled thing. "These pages match the skiff papers in Dr. Reeves's hand," she said. "You can call river water dry, Mr. Fitch, but folks know wet when it hits their boots." Kincaid limped from the smithy, shoulder bandaged, color bad, eyes good. He saw Phelps in irons, Fitch with mud on his cuffs, townspeople gathered like a jury summoned by dawn. "Enough," the sheriff said. "We finish this by sunup and by the book." Elias breathed the cool air after the heat. He looked at Mary. She looked back, steady as shade. The horses blew and settled, circling to their owners. The square filled with the sound of a morning that had just changed its mind. A shout tore the edge of things. Two of Phelps's boys tried to circle behind the church. Elias snapped a fallen lariat and dragged a hitching rail across their knees. They sprawled, then got busy keeping their teeth. He kicked their pistols under a wagon. "Sheriff," he called, "lock the bank and the doctor both. Post citizens, not Phelps's men." Kincaid nodded once. "You heard him," he told the crowd, and a dozen shopkeepers stepped forward. Fitch gathered himself. "You're ruining confidence," he snapped. "Confidence doesn't mind daylight unless it's built on shade," Elias said. He plucked the ribboned key from the mud and slipped it in his pocket. "You'll want this when we open what you meant to carry away." The bell slowed. The sun touched the signboards. Elias felt the town decide, the way a river changes current when it hits rock, and he set his feet for the hard, final reckoning that surely comes after. Morning pays what midnight borrowed. Sun sparked on broken glass and brass. The square held its breath like a jury that had decided. Elias kept the ribboned key. Mary stood at the church steps with papers ready for daylight. "Open it," Kincaid said, jaw tight with pain. Elias turned the key. The lock clicked. He set the strongbox on the counter, raised his voice so even the alleys could hear. "We do this where eyes can weigh it. Ledger first, coin second." Harlan Fitch moved along the wall, smile repaired but eyes busy. Dr. Reeves hovered with a satchel that hung too heavily. Elias flipped the box. Receipts spilled like dry leaves. He laid the salvaged ledger beside them. "Numbers walk straighter in company," he said. Mary came forward, calm as a winter creek. "These entries match," she told the town. "Wages to pocket cash. Consultations are billed, then billed." Reeves's hand. Fitch's seal. A hiss chased Reeves's name. He backed up to his door, then dove. Kincaid half-turned and paid for it. The bandage darkened. Matson, face gray, stepped into Reeves's path and drove him into the jam. Fitch snapped. He kicked a rug and yanked a ring in the floor. A plank lifted. Stale air surged. "Cellar," Elias said, already moving. "River run." Phelps's cuffed hands twitched as if wanting to help the wrong man. "He'll be gone," he muttered. "Not if the river owes me a favor," Elias said. He tossed the key to Kincaid. "Hold this room." "Mary, I'm with you," she said. They dropped into the dim. The tunnel was tight as a lie, braced with greed. Elias lifted his shoulders to keep his wound from dragging. Mary kept a hand on his belt and the other on her bag. Smoke moved against them. "He lit something," she said. "Then he's scared," Elias answered. At a fork, the left turn took fresher air. Elias tapped a board. "Dust lies like snow. One path shows crisp edges, one's been brushed. He wants us to leave." "Then right," she said. 2 turns later, light drew a line. A graded culvert bled into the riverbank. Fitch worked the pin. Match in his teeth, pistol in his belt, a sack on his back. "Turn easy," Elias said. Fitch spun, match popping. Smoke filled the slot. "Step in that water and paper dies," he snarled. "Town needs me more than it needs you." "Town needs truth more than vaults," Elias said. Fitch drew. Elias raised the crowbar he'd carried from the smithy. Mary slid low to the side, quiet as a nurse reaching under a bed. The match fell. Oil flashed along rags he'd laid to burn the crawl. Heat licked. Elias fainted high and came low, crowbar biting pin, wrenching the grate free by inches. Fitch fired. The ball slapped the stone, then Elias's shoulder with a mule's force. He grunted and stayed. Mary moved. Her sling, the one she'd tied on the boy, whipped from her bag, loaded with a small round of iron. It struck Fitch's wrist. The pistol skittered into the water. He lunged for Mary. Elias met him with the bar, not killing, but taking the legs from under him with a farmer's honesty. The grate gave. River breath rushed in and blew smoke back. Fitch went to one knee, sack dragging him. He clawed up, found a knife, and surged for Elias's ribs where blood already warmed his shirt. Elias didn't step away. He stepped in. He let the knife find his vest and the wad of paper under it, then put his forehead to Fitch's and his weight to the bar. Fitch folded with surprise as if something old and unpaid had come due. They hauled him out in a chain of townsmen who had followed through the front like grown-ups. Reeves came too, white and quiet. Matson's grip on his collar. The bell rang because somebody needed a sound to hold on to. Kincaid faced the town, swaying but unbent. "By law," he said, voice iron through linen, "Harlan, Fitch, and Dr. Reeves are under arrest for fraud, theft, and conspiracy. Ezra Phelps is relieved and will answer for obstruction." Phelps couldn't meet the street. Matson lifted a hand, not asking pardon, only standing where he ought to have stood first. Mary bound Elias's shoulder with swift hands that shook after the need passed. He set his palm over hers to steady both their work. "Hurts?" she asked. "Feels like truth," he said. "Truth costs, and buys back better things," she said. He looked at Kincaid, then at the town that had come awake. "Let's finish this clean," he said. "All of it by daylight." The sun tipped across the signs. Shutters opened, a bucket line formed, and the day at last felt fit to carry witness names and vows. Justice walks on sore feet, but it keeps walking. The cell doors shut on Fitch and Reeves, and the town let out a breath like rope loosening from a beam. Kincaid stood as straight as his bandage allowed. By noon the pews were full, papers spread on the communion table. "We'll return what was stolen," Kincaid said, "and we'll be better neighbors with our numbers than with our tempers." Names were read, coins counted, and the cash box passed across benches to calloused hands. Matson spoke his piece to put mud where it belonged, then walked back to his cell without a shove. When the last line stood corrected, Kincaid faced the crowd. "I can keep order," he said, pale and stubborn. "But a shoulder that met lead needs rest. This town deserves more than a man who can't lift a rifle. We need a sheriff who belongs to the anvil in the morning." Eyes went to the blacksmith. Tom Avery's palms were black at the creases and clean at the edges. A man who washed what could be washed and carried the rest. He squared it. "If the town wants me, I'll serve. I'll use words before iron." Avery took the oath with his hand over a new-cut star. The congregation said amen. Elias waited by the side door, hat low, shoulder wrapped where Mary's hands had made order of hurt. When the amen faded, he stepped to the anvil, laid his old badge flat, and said, "Tom, melt this down and give me back something a man can keep without wearing." The forge woke. Flame cupped the tin. The star sagged and lost the shape that had drawn bullets. Mary stood a pace behind, carpetbag set aside. The smith drew a glowing thread and wound it on a mandrel, tapping soft, quenching. He held it up. It wasn't pretty and would never be fine, but it would last as long as hands did. Elias took the cooled ring. Tin remembered the star. That felt right. He found Mary under the bell ropes. Folks made a little space without being asked. "I told you at the river I'd take the blame for lost hours," he said. "I'll take the work for the years too, if you'll have me." "You already gave away your badge," she said, steady. "Don't give away your freedom." Freedom that leaves a good woman walking alone isn't the kind I want. He went to one knee because some moments deserve to be shaped the same as rings. "Mary Coulter, I can't promise ease. I can promise to stand between you and foolishness and to put my back and both hands to whatever keeps you whole. Will you wear what this star learned and make a home with me where the river runs and the babies come at all hours?" Her mouth trembled once, then set. "Elias Hart, you lay down what makes you proud and pick up what makes you needed. That's a man I can marry." He slid the ring. It fit because he had looked and guessed right. The bell gave one solemn note because some boy couldn't help pulling, and the town laughed the way towns laugh when they know they'll be all right. Afterward, they walked to Casey's camp. The axle was fixed. The baby's grip had found work for a father's finger. They named her River, because she arrived in flood and left the banks higher than before. Mary checked mother and child, leaving a list of small tasks that made men useful. By evening, folks hammered a sign over the clinic. Midwife and surgery, fees fair, no ledgers double. A jar stood on the counter. Coins sang at the bottom. Kincaid signed a paper giving Avery the job and Phelps a court date. Reeves would ride to the county seat in daylight between two ranchers. On the porch, Elias sat with Mary and watched swallows stitch the dusk. He flexed his shoulder because that's what healed things do when they remember. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "The star? I kept the part that mattered," he said, turning her hand so the tin caught the last line of light. It had 5 points. "We'll give them meaning as we go." Folks still tell how the banker tried to drown paper and the river spit it back, how a midwife turned a crowd with a sling and a stare, and how a man laid down his badge and picked up a promise. They say the town learned to count with its heart as well as its ledger. And that's a piece of history worth repeating. If you want more clean frontier love and justice, subscribe to the channel for the next ride and share this tale with a friend who likes their heroes steady and their endings earned.